just be me doing. Oh, we're live. Look at that. Oh my God. It's 12:45 here in the East. And this is well, it's not unplugged today. It's plugged in today with Justin Fisher, our resident EV what the hell do I call you? Nerd? No, you're not a nerd.
No, I'm a nerd. Yeah, I'm a nerd.
Okay. Yeah, our resident EV nerd. It's Mr. Justin Fisher. How are you today, Justin?
Feeling lovely. It's springtime here in West Virginia, and it's nice outside. Trees are finally green.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's raining.
Yeah, it's raining here.
And I'm getting better efficiency in my EV these days. It's tough in the wintertime whenever it's 25 degrees outside and there's a north wind.
Yeah.
And electric vehicles efficiency drops quite a bit, and so do ICE vehicles, but it's a little bit different when gas stations are on every corner, right?
Well, you trying to tell me the charging stations aren't on every corner yet?
Well, I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. So I've now owned my 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 all-wheel drive limited for a little over a year. So like a year, 12 and a half months. So we'll call it a year for the sake of round numbers, right? And I'm going to be talking to you today about what my charging experiences have been like over the past year. Some good, some bad, and I've brought numbers, and I'm a big fan of quantifying everything, right? Yeah, we could just say charging sucks or charging is great, or we could look at the numbers, and that's what we're going to do today.
Well, that takes the fun out of it for me, because I'm a big believer in just saying stuff and hoping some of it's actually true.
We'll just bring the questions. That'll make it fun enough, right? Because I may or may not be able to answer them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I figured I'd start off this show while we wait for our CarEdge family to join us with some interesting news. Ray, are you a fan of Costco?
Costco, I used to have a Costco membership, yeah, we used to go every Sunday. Zach and I, we would go and stock up for the family. But now that I'm by my lonesome, I can't afford that 35-pound or that $35 can of tuna fish, because it's just too big of a can for one person.
Yeah, well, Costco has decided that they're not going to be adding EV chargers anytime soon. They are known as the leader in affordable gas prices nationwide.
Yes.
Back whenever I used to stop by gas stations frequently, I stopped by the Costco's in Texas where I lived. And there were sometimes lines around the block, which was interesting. I never did sit in those lines, not once. But whenever it was possible, that's where the cheap gas was. And Costco says, no EV charging right now. They think they're not quite necessary yet. I mean, I can see from a business perspective where they're coming from, because charging stations and the infrastructure and installation required for them, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Ray, do you have any idea how much it costs to purchase and install a level 3 DC fast charger, the fast ones?
The fast ones, I have no idea, but if I were to guess, to buy it and have it installed, I want to say $300,000 to $400,000.
Yeah, typically it's more like $200,000 to $300,000, but that is not chump change. That is a lot of money. So I can see their hesitation to jump into it right now. But I mean, in the past year, EV market share, when it comes to new vehicle sales in the United States, has jumped all the way up to 7.2% of all new cars sold in Q1 2023. A year ago, that number was under 5%. And if you go back 2 years ago, it was under 3%. So it's not happening overnight, and I've been saying that for years. It's not going to happen. Not everyone's going to be driving an EV by 2030. Not happening. But it is a slow and steady climb.
Can I suggest to you why it doesn't make sense for Costco to do it?
Yes.
Okay. You have the gas pumps, and you can probably have, I don't know, 100 people an hour or more fill up their cars with gas. How long does it take to charge a car? If you have fast chargers, it's what, 20 minutes?
Depends what kind of car you have, but yeah, your point is valid. Yeah, some cars it might take 45 minutes.
Okay, so while one car is being juiced up in 45 minutes. 100 ICE vehicles could have been gassed up. And since they operate on a smaller margin to begin with, they have to make it up in volume. And you can't do the volume associated with charging electric vehicles, at least not at this point in time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought of it like that. Mostly because I haven't filled up a gas tank in about a year. But I see your point. I see your point, Ray. And it's easy for me to forget about these types of things. I shouldn't forget about them, but I do because I typically spend about 20 minutes at a charging station. And I know you're going to say 4 cars could fill up in 20 minutes. That's true.
Yeah.
But it is true that I would say the industry average right now is probably more like 30 to 40 minutes per charging session. And that is considerably more.
Yeah. I think that's really, the reason for it. If you are a business that's based on making money through volume, through getting as many people as possible through as quickly as you possibly can, EV charging just doesn't really fit that business model.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I thought it'd be interesting to share with you the different types of places I've charged at.
Okay,
Now, I'm not
I
talking,
would find interesting. Yeah,
yeah, you might be surprised. So I'm not just talking charging networks because with a non-Tesla, at least until Lord Musk decides to open up the rest of the network to peasants like me. For now, I'm not using the Tesla supercharger network, so I'm using Electrify America, but 90% charging at home. Um, at least when it comes to time spent charging. But
yes,
I've got some interesting numbers to share with you here in a minute. I want to talk about physically where am I charging. Now, if you are not a Tesla driver, if you drive a Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, Chevy Bolt, maybe even an ID4, you probably spend a whole lot more time than you want to at a Walmart. And that is what I do. Whenever I'm traveling, I would say 70 to 80% of Electrify America stations are at Walmart parking lots. At least there's a restroom in the Walmart, right?
yes,
But
yes.
it's not the best experience, I must say. Any guesses as to where the other charging experiences might have been? What have you seen in your region? Because you live about 400 miles from me. Where do you see chargers at?
Honestly, down here in the Atlantic City area, I haven't.
Hmm.
And I know there must be some. I'm thinking perhaps, um, at the casinos down here, in their parking garages, they must have some EV chargers in their parking garages for the gamblers that drive down from New York or wherever that would need to recharge their vehicles once they're here. So I'm assuming there's probably some at some of the casino hotel parking garages. But I have no idea. I haven't noticed any. And I think the reason that I haven't noticed any is because I don't need them, so you don't notice things you don't necessarily need, if
Yeah,
that
that's
makes any
true.
sense.
Well, I came prepared, Ray, and I'm looking up your area on plugshare.com, which,
Yeah.
yeah, and I am surprised there are only 4 fast chargers within about 20 miles of you, and
Wow.
three of the 4 are Tesla superchargers. So, yeah, that's actually pretty pitiful, especially as New Jersey is concerned, because New Jersey is known as a pretty pro EV state. They've got some great rebates.
Yes.
Looks like all the chargers are further north than Atlantic City, but some other places I've charged at plenty of museums, typically for free. Whenever I'm
Y-
like taking my family somewhere,
Yeah.
visiting a science museum or art museum or something, many of them have free EV chargers. That has
Oh,
been pretty cool when traveling. Um, I've charged at parks, state parks, city parks. I've charged for free in downtowns where they've got level 2 slower chargers
yes.
installed to try to bring people off of the interstate and into downtowns. I've charged at Targets, and IKEA. Yeah, it's interesting how chargers are really spreading across America. And for people like me, it's no longer just Walmarts.
Is it Are you excited at the prospect that Rivian has said they're going to make their charging network open to the public? I mean, do they have that big of a charging network, for the three Rivians that are out there?
They don't have a big one yet, but I am
Yeah.
excited about that as an outdoorsman. I like to go to national forests and whatnot, and they say that's one of their targets for growing their charging network. I'm not sure how profitable that would be if you've got it being used once a week. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, Rivian aims to be the second largest public charging network, I think by the end of 2027, something like that.
Well,
Right now, they're nowhere close to that. Their charging network is small right now. So Tesla
and
is still the leader.
and wouldn't that be assuming that Rivian's even around in 2027?
Well, I think Amazon will help them out as much as they need to. That's my two
Really?
cents. That's my 2 cents.
Really? Why do you say that?
Oh, I've got nothing to back it up with, Ray.
Okay, that sounds like something
They've
I
got
would
a
say
cool
then.
Amazon delivery vehicle. They've got a cool delivery vehicle. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Because they don't seem to be able to produce nearly as many vehicles as they have the capability allegedly of producing,
yeah,
and so therefore they don't deliver nearly as many vehicles as they allegedly have the capability of producing and delivering, and they're burning through cash at a pretty high rate. So
that is true. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen on here. Ray, let me know if you see what I'm about to try to share, because I wanted to share some Rivian related content with you guys. Pretty interesting stuff.
I don't know why you wouldn't be able to share your screen.
Let's see. Well, because I'm not like the maestro of this
I
stream
don't
right
think
now.
you have to be. I
I think
think you
you
just
are.
have to hit present at the bottom, and yeah, here it comes.
You can see it?
Well, I can see that you're trying to do something.
Maybe
What
you have
happens if
to give me permission or
here,
something.
there, I
There it
added
is.
it to the stream for you.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to scroll down and show you guys Rivian's trajectory over time, and it's not as miserable as Lucid. So let's see. Let's get down there. Ba-dum. Rivian.
Yes.
Actually, that is kind of bad. They flatlined and they did not grow at all in Q1 2023. But
Okay, there you go.
yeah, but over the past year, as they would say, year-over-year growth is like what, 200-300%? That's
I
what they
don't
would say, right?
I don't care. If the next quarter it's less than the previous quarter, that's not a good sign.
Yes, and I agree totally with Igor in the chat. I think Rivian has done a great job with the truck, so I would love to see them introduce a more affordable vehicle, perhaps a crossover or a sedan, but the world these days, it's probably going to be a crossover. I know they're trying to do the Tesla model, which is produce really expensive, lower volume vehicles first, use the profits from that to fund the production of more affordable electric models. It has worked for Tesla. Yeah, they had some federal loans and whatnot, but they paid them off. And now look, the Model 3 rear-wheel drive starts under $40,000, right?
Yes.
So it would be great if Rivian could do that. It's just almost impossible to replicate, I'd say.
Can I share a stat with you
Yes.
that I found really interesting? That worldwide, the most searched EV by a lot is the Model 3.
Yes.
Over 19 million searches. Now, having said that, I know from our business, Zach talks about conversion rates all the time. So if there was 19.5 million searches for the Model 3, and how many did they sell?
Yeah, I
Half
don't
a
know.
million?
I don't know.
Well, let's say it's a 500,000.
Yeah, you can calculate their conversion rate, I guess.
That ain't a very good conversion rate, is it, for the number of searches that they're going through?
Yeah, well, I would say if you use that metric, then most other vehicles sold by GM, Ford, Stellantis, etc., also have horrible conversion rates. But I see what you're saying. That's an interesting parallel. I'll tell you what, Ray. If I didn't have 1.5 kids, what I mean by that,
yes,
is I have a son that'll be born next month, so that'll be number 2.
Wow,
Yeah,
congratulations.
if I didn't have a little family of my own, I would definitely have a Model 3 because I like the Model 3 more than the Model Y. It drives a hell of a lot more sporty. It's affordable-ish.
Yes.
It goes fast when you want it to. It has amazing efficiency. So if you care about the planet and you want to buy an electric vehicle to, you know, really, really cut down on energy use per mile traveled, the Model 3 is one of the best options out there. But it's pretty compact and pretty tight in the back seats. I actually did a Turo one time and rented one for 2 days with my family. That back seat's pretty small, but I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of the Model 3. And I think you yourself, you need to go test drive one.
Everybody says that.
Yeah.
But
Especially me.
here's a question for you, because you uttered a phrase that I need to ask you about. You said if you really care about the health of the planet, okay, and so what I derive from that statement is that EVs will help the health of the planet,
Depending on how much you drive.
but still, so much of the electric that is produced using coal and fossil fuels and things of that nature. And they're going to need to produce more and more electricity using more and more fossil fuels and coal. Um, the degradation of the planet through the mining for the rare earth materials that are needed for EVs and for the batteries. So, is it is it really an honest statement to say, well, if you care about the health of the planet, uh, when the impact to the health of the planet could be just as severe because of EVs as it is through the use of ICE vehicles?
I'm going to address those points, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Good.
This is where it takes an even nerdier nerd to get into these numbers. But luckily, I've got the info you're looking for, Ray.
Good. Thank
Um,
you.
so first thing to address, electric motors by nature are tremendously more efficient than any combustion engine. The combustion engines have been engineered for maximum efficiency for the past over 100 years, well over 100 years at this point.
Yeah.
And what's the best we got? A hybrid powertrain with maybe 60 miles per gallon. Here's something to consider. My Ioniq 5, it has a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. And we'll
Okay.
talk about the battery minerals. If I forget, remind me. We'll talk about
Okay.
the impact of battery mining. But 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. You know how many kilowatt hours of pure energy, if you convert it to joules, which is the scientific unit for energy, how many kilowatt hours of energy are in 1 gallon of gas?
No. See, that's why I ask the questions
Sure.
I ask.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah.
This is an important conversation. 33 kilowatt hours of electricity. 33 kilowatt hours of electricity equivalent in 1 gallon of gas. I've
Okay.
got a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. That means to go 250 miles in my car, I am consuming the equivalent of about, rough math, 2.25 gallons of gas to go
Gotcha.
250 miles. That is
Okay.
great efficiency. Now let's
Okay.
talk about the grid real quick, and I'll keep this short because I want to dive back into my charging experience. It's got more
Okay.
to share with you. Stay tuned if you're looking for the numbers because I've got some really good numbers. We'll get to that in 5 minutes. But yeah, so right now the U.S. electric grids, there's several grids depending on the region of the country you're in. I think there's 5 or 6. Average about 20% wind, solar, and hydropower.
Okay.
So that number was under 10% 10 years ago.
Gotcha.
They're forecasting that 10 years from now, that number is going to be close to 50%.
Okay.
Of course, along with that comes the need for modernizing the grid, transformers, etc. Time of use is going to be completely different with electric vehicles, mostly charging at night for those who can. So there are challenges ahead. But not only are electric vehicles using tremendously less energy, I'm talking orders of magnitude less energy to drive each mile, the
Okay.
grid that they're charging up on is quickly cleaning up. So interesting little things to consider. The last note, mining. that is my greatest concern with electric vehicles, is the impact of mining these different minerals, not just lithium, but my own car, it has a small amount of cobalt in it, and I'm not proud of that. I almost didn't buy the car because of that. But
Mhm.
fortunately, automakers led by Tesla are moving away from the most damaging minerals that are the worst for the environment, such as cobalt. Uh, there's a few others I should know, but it's slipping my mind. And they're moving more towards like the lithium iron phosphate batteries and others that can be mined more ethically and in less environmental with less environmental destruction. And there are math equations you can do to see how many miles do I need to drive
Mhm.
to make up for the environmental impact of the mining that was done to produce my battery pack. Yeah, so that's awesome, and when I crunched the numbers, for me, it was about 35,000 miles of driving, and
Yes.
after that point, for the rest of the life of my vehicle, I will have more than made up for the impact of the battery mining.
Okay, cool. I am glad that you were prepared to be able to answer my question.
I care about these things, and I think they're good questions. Yeah, it's
No,
something more of
well,
us should be talking about.
I mean, part of what we do here, a big part of what we do here is well, educate Ray. Uh,
I've got a lot to learn too. I'm not yeah, I
yeah,
don't know.
but you are the difference between me and you is like I'm in the kindergarten and you are working on your master's. That's the difference in education about EVs between me and you. So there's so much more for me to learn and to even begin to understand. Um, I'm just starting out. You're so far advanced. So yeah, I have questions, and then you're able to provide me with factual answers that make it easier for me to understand how and why this could be better.
Well, I understand, most people don't want, nor do they have the time to dig into these kinds of nerdy details when considering their car purchase. But it is something I care about, and fortunately, as working with CarEdge, I have the chance to look it up on company time, don't I, Ray?
Yeah, we pay you to do this. This is a wonderful thing.
Yep, it's pretty awesome. But yeah, let's get even nerdier with my charging experiences, okay? So I've
Okay.
come prepared. I'm basically going to read a script that I wrote based on the calculations I did for you all. So if
Okay.
you want to know what it's like to own an electric vehicle for about a year, how much am I paying for charging? I've come prepared with what I've actually paid,
Okay.
what I would have paid if I only charged at home,
Uh-huh.
and what I would have paid if I only charged at public fast chargers.
Gotcha.
So these are important numbers to compare and contrast. Let me dive in.
And I think the most important number is going to be is how many miles have you driven for this exercise?
Yes, we're starting there.
Yes.
Not proud to say I have driven 20 me my wife and I have driven
Yes.
26,000 miles in almost 13 months. We are basically a one vehicle household. She uses it to travel to her shows. My wife, she produces various products that she sells. It's called Mooncraft Botanicals. If anyone wants to look it up, it's like lotions, soaps, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And when she needs to travel 100 miles each way to a show where she's selling her products, she takes the electric vehicle. So yeah, 26,000 miles. It's a lot,
Yes.
but I'd like to think that I'm only responsible for like 60 or 70% of
Okay.
that. All right. The Ioniq 5 is not the most efficient electric vehicle out there. The Model Y, Model 3, they're a whole lot more efficient. My car, I like to think, looks cool, but
Yes.
it's not. It actually takes an efficiency hit because of how it looks. So I've averaged 3.0 miles per kilowatt hour over those 26,000 miles.
Okay.
If you do the math, that is 8,692 kilowatt hours of electricity. Of course, there are some charging losses, especially in the cold, where in reality it would be marginally more than that because some electricity is just lost during the charging process.
Mhm.
But we can call it 8,700 kilowatt hours of electricity to go 26,000 miles.
Okay.
Now, I just before the show pulled up my Electrify America profile. 3,556 kilowatt hours were at Electrify America, and a very small amount was at other networks or level 2 chargers like the ones I've mentioned. I'm
Mhm.
never trying to charge from 20% to 100% at those slow level 2 chargers. It's usually just topping it off or, charging for an hour opportunistically. So
Yes.
I went ahead and ignored like EV Go, ChargePoint, and the others because I rarely use them.
Okay.
Now, with the 3,556 kilowatt hours at Electrify America, I did not pay a single dollar for any of that because the Ioniq 5 comes with 2 years of free charging at Electrify America. So,
But having said that, it was free for you. But if you would have had to have pay,
yes,
what would that have been?
I've got the number right here, Ray.
Bless your
Yes.
heart.
If I did not have a membership with Electrify America, which is $4 a month, and yes, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
Uh, if I was just a guest rate, $1,700 for those 3,500 kilowatt hours of electricity. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if I was a member, I would have paid $1,200 roughly.
Okay.
Now, yeah. So we'll go back to those numbers here in a moment. The rest, 5,100 and some change, 5,100 kilowatt hours was charging at home, and I'm fortunate to have pretty affordable electricity rates, about 16 cents per kilowatt hour. So at my local electricity rates, a full tank, if I was going from 0% to 100% state of charge, cost me about $12 to $13
Wow.
to go 250
Yeah.
miles. In the winter, it's more like 220, but still.
Yeah.
Doing the math over the past year, with the amount of charging I did at home, I paid about $820 in electricity to charge at home. That comes out to about $69 a month to drive on average, a lot,
Yes.
2,100 miles per month. Yeah. Now, I brought more numbers, okay? So first,
Okay.
before I dive into those numbers, what are your thoughts on what we just talked about? Does that sound kind of expensive? What do you
No,
think?
that sounds cheap. To drive 2,100
Paying about
miles a month.
$70 to go about 2,100
Yeah.
miles.
I mean, and if it was a regular gas powered vehicle, and let's say you averaged 30 miles to the gallon, how many gallons of gas would it take to go 2,100 miles?
I've got that number for you already, Ray. I
I
came
assumed you
prepared.
might. I assumed you
Came
might because you know
prepared.
how my mind works. Yes.
Because yeah, so I wanted to sell our 2014 Subaru Forester back when used car prices were through the roof. I was like,
Yes.
let's sell this bad boy and make some money. But she didn't want to. So we still got it sitting in the driveway. It gets driven occasionally.
Yes.
That vehicle averages about 25 miles per gallon real
Okay.
world. That's what it says on the display.
Yeah.
At our local gas prices of just $3.50 per gallon, that would cost $3,600 for a full 26,000 miles of drive.
Okay. And you spent um 800, and if you didn't have free charging for 2 years at Electrify America, it would have been approximately 1,200. So let's say you spent
About 2,000.
about 2,000 in comparison to how much
30,
was it?
3,600 with the Subaru Forester.
So it saves you $1,600 annually.
Yeah, and this is a different topic, but to my surprise, the insurance for my car is cheaper than the Subaru Forester by a few dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, and we both have clean records and everything. So, interesting little tidbit there.
Yes.
No one can pull but insurance is more expensive card.
Gotcha.
Yeah, very, very interesting, isn't it? Now, what if all of my driving and charging, what if all of my charging was done at Electrify America at those guest rates, the
Yes.
most expensive rates? They're at 48 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Then the story flips completely. I would have
Yes.
paid $4,100 to drive 26,000 miles if
Which
I was only charging at Electrify America, paying
so
for it.
that would have been $500 more
Yes.
for the year.
And that is a literally worst case scenario because
Yes.
I'm talking guest rates. I'm not paying the $4 a month to get lower rates.
Yes.
I'm being horrible for my battery's health if I'm charging at a DC fast charger all the time. That is
Yes.
not good for an EV's battery. You're only supposed to do that when you need it, like when you're traveling.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a worst case scenario. Pretty interesting stuff, isn't it?
Yes. No, it really is. Um, so essentially what I'm hearing from you, somebody like me who drives about 3,500 miles a year, um, there's really no upside to going electric.
Yeah, there's not an upside for going electric if you drive under, I would dare to say, under 10 to 12,000 miles per year, honestly. And I've given that advice to some of our members on the CarEdge electric vehicle forum.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if you want to go electric for like environmental reasons, remember that the impact of mining is significant to where for most models, depending on the chemistry of the battery pack and how large the battery pack is, to make up for the environmental impact through saved emissions, through
Yes.
saved tailpipe emissions, you're going to have to drive between 25 and in some cases 50,000 miles. And then
So
sure, it's true that beyond that, it's cleaner for
yeah.
the rest of the life of the vehicle, which could be 300,000 miles. That's a lot of emissions saved at that point. But
Yeah.
if you're only driving 3, 4, 5, even 10,000 miles a year, it's going to take a while to make up for just those impacts alone.
Well, for me, it would be
Money.
I'd have to drive 10 years.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
long time. And then
Yeah.
and that was just me being a tree hugger, which I will admit. That doesn't even consider the fact that electric vehicles on average cost between 15 and 20% more than traditional ICE vehicles. So it really does make sense to go electric if you drive a lot in 2023.
Hmm.
But if you don't, save your money, wait for the technology to mature. EVs will charge a whole lot faster 5 years from now, and they'll have better battery packs, better range. Yeah, save your
You know
money.
what's going to happen 5 years from now? EVs will charge faster, and I will move slower.
I'm a fan of that. Yeah, no need to rush.
I can assure you, age will make me move slower.
I heard a quote recently from one of the Greek Stoics 2,000 years ago, and they said, "Rushing is one of the most entitled things a person can do." So
I'm pretty sure that's accurate.
ruminate on that. Yeah. Well, Ray, before we wrap up the show, any last minute questions you've got for me based on my charging experiences?
What's the longest trip you've taken miles wise?
From West Virginia to Texas and back.
Oh, that's a long trip.
Oh yeah, and I've
Yeah.
been to the Midwest a few times. My family's kind of all spread out, so if I want to see them, I gotta either fly or drive. And when you live 2 hours from the nearest airport,
You might as well just drive.
drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much when you took your trip from your home in West Virginia to go to Texas, during that trip, how much time do you think you spent actually charging the vehicle?
Yeah, during that trip, I did calculate and keep track of that number. I'll try to dig it up real quick, but I do want to mention that pretty quickly, as I was consciously trying to keep track of that, I realized it's kind of a hard figure to put a number on because a lot of those times I was eating lunch that I would have eaten anyways while I was
Exactly.
working,
Yeah.
or in some cases I was actually working with CarEdge on my laptop while I was charging, and I appreciated the chance to sit there for 20 minutes. My car actually charged too fast a few times because I was like, well, I'm done, but I still need to do something. Yeah, but it's undeniably more time than filling up at a gas station. But for my lifestyle and for a lot of other drivers out there, I have zero complaints about that.
Hmm.
I would not be cool with 1 hour charge times, which the Chevy Bolt has been killed. And I know the Chevy Bolt brings amazing affordability to EVs and
Yes.
Nissan Leaf. But for those who aren't as patient, those models, they're not going to cut it with their longer charge times.
Well, there you have it. All the stuff I'm learning today. Oh my God.
I can't believe they killed the Bolt. I'm really concerned about how GM is going to price the Equinox EV, because that's their bread and butter that they're counting on in 2024 for affordable, in quotation marks, EVs. And they said it would start around $30,000, but I call BS. I don't think they're going to do that. And I mean, with the Bolt starting around 26 grand, what if the most affordable Chevy EV ends up costing 40 grand? That is a massive hike, and I hope that they can stay true to their word, bringing the Equinox EV entry level trim to the market for around $30,000. I really hope that happens for the sake of affordability.
My suspicion is that when manufacturers come up with these vehicles, and at the time that they come up with these vehicles, and they base projected MSRPs on what the costs are at that point in time,
Exactly.
which are completely different than what the costs are when they actually begin producing those vehicles. Those are just pie in the sky numbers. Much like you mentioned Tesla before, much like the Cybertruck, which was first brought up. What did Justice tell me? It was 2019 or 2018, and they were projecting at that point in time that it would be about a $40,000 truck. And I think we all can agree that today it won't be anywhere near $40,000.
No.
So I think whatever numbers are ascribed to these vehicles before they actually begin producing them, it's just pie in the sky numbers to make it sound good at the time.
Yeah, but if anyone out there is considering entering the market for a new electric vehicle in the next year, you're looking under $45,000. If you're not interested in the amazingly affordable Model 3, or a base level, a base, I guess they call it, what do they call it? The Ioniq5. It's SE. If you're not interested in like an SE Ioniq5 or something like that, you might consider waiting to at least take the Equinox EV for a test drive. Just keep that in mind, okay? Because it's going to charge a whole lot faster than today's budget options, especially if it starts around 30 grand. Very skeptical of that, but even at 35 grand, it's going to charge a whole lot faster than your options today at that price point. It's going to have 250 miles of range plus upwards of 300 for higher trims. That is the EV in the budget price range that I'd really recommend waiting for if you're in that price range. So yeah.
Let me see if I can get my mouse to work for a minute, because Igor had an interesting thing that here we go. So much for that $30,000 EV.
That is horrible if true, Igor. And you've said some things in the past that have turned out to be, in fact, true when it comes to these types of market insights. So I'm hoping you're wrong, Igor. I hope you're wrong. That would be horrible. Ah, man.
He has good sources.
Please don't do that, GM. Give us the base model for like 35 grand. Well,
there you have it. Didn't mean to ruin your Friday.
That definitely ruined it. Threw it in the trash, right? Well, if anyone does want to talk EVs and is looking for some trustworthy advice about not only affordability but capability, feel free to join us at the Electric Vehicle Forum over at CarEdge.com. We've got literally thousands of people on there. It's not just EV nerds like myself. We've got everyday drivers talking about EVs and sharing advice, sharing ownership experiences. So check it out. The CarEdge Electric Vehicle Forum, CarEdge.com.
Nicely done. That was a strong pitch, and I appreciate it. And I think since it's well past lunchtime for me, I think we're done for the day. and I know you probably have other work to do as well. So I want to thank you for being here today, Justin, because this is truly news that you can use for EVs as opposed to the just debate style concept that Justice and I have during the week. And in the meantime, I'll be back here on Tuesday, I guess it is, with Justice. Well, for CarEdge Unplugged, and we'll be back here at 12:45 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:45 a.m. Justice's time in Sacramento. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks again, Justin, for being here. And we'll see you. I guess I have to hit end broadcast. So we'll see you again Monday.